before I go ahead to share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen, okay? If you can see my screen, do let me know. All right.
Yes, I can see the screen. Solution requirement specification.
Awesome. So we've discussed about business analysis, what business analysis is, right? In the very first class. And we've also looked at things we do before we start a business analysis project. Things like planning your business analysis activity, right? And then we looked at prioritizations. How do we prioritize requirements? How do we qualify a requirement to be good when we write such, which is a requirement evaluation or requirement attributes? What are the different formats in which we use in communicating requirements to stakeholders for sign-off or for approvals or for review? And then we've also looked at things that have to do with business consulting, which is strategy. How do we prepare business cases to justify the profitability or commercial benefits of a particular business idea, business initiative, or project, or what have you? We also looked at business modeling. How do we craft a winning and successful business model that's a business, maybe it could be an established enterprise or a startup can adopt to become more profitable or to generate revenue to stay profitable. So we've looked at several things, several areas. Also looked at how do we elicit requirements, knowing that requirement elicitation goes beyond just the someone's mic is on.
Oh,
Okay.
that's me.
Oladayo and Sheung. All right, cool. So knowing that requirement elicitation goes beyond just gathering requirements. It involves preparing for the activity, conducting the activity, and communicating as well as collaborating the result of that requirement elicitation activity with your stakeholders. So all of these things are to help us understand things we do before we even get into the project delivery. And that is because the way I see projects, basically, projects are divided into two. Number one is the project discovery. Number two is the project delivery. And number three is the project maintenance or project growth. Same way it is in product management. We have product discovery, we have product delivery, and then we have the product growth, right? So we've talked about how we discover a product, basically, from the point of elicitation, from the point of conceptualization, of strategy, from the point of modeling, from the point of planning for that particular product delivery. Now we are entering a phase of delivering the products or project delivery. And what do we do as a business analyst or as a product manager or as a product owner when we are in the delivery phase of the project? So in the delivery phase, we are a lot more focused on the solution, ensuring that the solution, or you can say the products that we have conceptualized, or the solution that we have discovered, right, is well specified. Specification means it is well communicated, it is well articulated in a documentation format so that everyone who has a relationship or everyone who is going to be responsible for implementing that solution has a clear understanding of what the solution should be. So we are going to be looking at solution requirement specification. Now, if you show solution requirement specification helps us to specify or to outline the conditions and the capabilities that a solution should have in order for it to meet the business and stakeholder needs. In order for a solution to meet its own stakeholder needs or business need, we must ensure that we correctly specify the requirements of that solution. Now, if we should flash back our mind, right, to what we learned in the very first class in this program, during the introduction to business analysis, we learned that there are four classifications of requirements. Number one is business requirements. Number two is stakeholder requirements. Number three is solution requirements. And we know that solution requirements can be subcategorized into two, which is functional and non-functional requirements. And then number four is transition requirements. And from what we've learned, right, the expectation is that the business requirement outlines the business goals, the business objectives, the business impact, the business expectations, right? The business outcomes for that particular initiative. And then the stakeholder requirements outlines the stakeholder needs or the stakeholder expectations. That's which, if we satisfy those stakeholder needs, we would in turn satisfy the business requirements. So the stakeholder requirements and the business requirements relate with each other. The stakeholder requirements satisfies the business requirements. And then we have the solution requirements. We are not building a solution for robots to use. We are building the solution for stakeholders to make use of it. And by the time stakeholders make use of the solution or of the products, that means the solution would satisfy the stakeholder needs. And since the stakeholder needs aligns with the business need, it invariably or indirectly means that the solution would satisfy the business needs. So we are going to head straight into functional requirements, which is an aspect of solution requirements. Remember, solution requirements has two subcategories: functional and non-functional requirements. So we'll take a look at functional requirement specifications. How do we specify functional requirements? Now, you will need to get this clear. There is a difference between a specification and a modeling. We are going to start by learning specifications, and then we'll also learn modeling as well. I believe by next week, Saturday, we'll start with modeling. So we'll do specification today, also do specification on Thursday. Then on Saturday, we'll do modeling. We'll do two modeling, just as I'm going to do two specification. So requirements, functional requirements specification. If you recall, functional requirements define the specific behaviors. It defines the specific capabilities. It defines the specific components of a solution. So what should be the components of an e-commerce solution? An e-commerce solution should have an account creation feature. An e-commerce solution should have a login feature. An e-commerce solution should have an item categorization feature. An e-commerce solution should have a checkout feature. An e-commerce solution should have a cart, C-A-R-T, a cart feature where people can add items to carts, right? An e-commerce solution should have an item detail or item inventory feature where people can search for items and view details of those items. An e-commerce solution should have a payment feature, right? So these are components, right? These are components of an e-commerce solution. And that is what the functional requirements focuses on. What should be the components of this solution? What should be the components of this product? And then by the time we identify the components of the solution, we now specify, or we now outline or write down the requirements that are needed to satisfy or communicate that particular solution. So functional requirements outlines what functions or functionalities that the solution will support. So what function with this solution, with this product support? If you are using WhatsApp today, you can look at WhatsApp and say, okay, some of the functionalities that WhatsApp supports is ability to send chats, right? To send chat messages, ability to make voice call, ability to make video calls, ability to create a group chat, ability to post status, right? These are the functionalities or functions that the solution called WhatsApp supports. And this is what functional requirements helps us to outline. So we are able to outline or highlight the different functions or functionality of the solution. Functional requirements also helps us to outline the tasks and experience of stakeholders. Aside from the fact that we articulate the functionalities of the solution when writing functional requirements, we also go ahead to specify the various tasks that stakeholders will be performing with those functions. So let me give an instance here. One of the functions of WhatsApp is to make voice call, right? Now, if you want to outline the tasks or the experience or process of making a voice call, we will say the process would be user logs in into WhatsApp, user selects a contact from the contact list, user taps on the call icon to make a call with customer. The call begins to ring if the user is available online. That is, if the recipient that you're calling is available online, the call begins to ring. If the recipient picks the call will be connected and user makes a call, commences conversation with the recipient. Now, this is the experience, the stakeholder experience for making voice call. The stakeholder experience for making use of the voice call functionality with WhatsApp. Now, in functional requirements, as I said, we don't only specify the functions or functionality. We go ahead to talk about the experience that stakeholders would get from making use of that particular function. And that is where you hear the word user experience a lot in products or user experience a lot in IT. And all of this falls under functional requirements. When writing our functional requirements, we make sure we are able to cover the process or the journey, the user journey that the user would follow to complete that task. And then in functional requirements as well, we also talk about other information that will be managed by the system, right? There are some information that will be managed by the system which are not functionalities, but they are functional to the solution. Let me give an instance here. If you want to sign up on LinkedIn today, right? You agree with me that there are informations that you will need to provide. Aside just talking about the fact that LinkedIn should have a sign up feature, that would allow customers or users to sign up. Or aside saying the fact that LinkedIn should have a profile feature that should allow users to create a profile. And even going ahead or going further to say, this is a process to create a profile, right? In functional requirements, we even take a step further to list out the information that would be necessary or that will be required for that profile updates or that profile creation to be considered successful or to be considered complete. So we outline the information that needs to be managed or that needs to be provided during when we are specifying functional requirements. And the last one is that functional requirements, they help us to outline or understand the circumstances which the solution should behave. And this is where we talk about acceptance criteria or business rules. So what are the circumstances? What are the criteria for which this functionality, for which these capabilities, for which this component of the solution should behave, right? These are the things we outline, or these are the things we try to represent when we are talking about functional requirements. Today's class is very, very important. Or should I say, what should be learning today and going forward, if you actually have interest in IT business analysis, if you actually have interest in breaking into IT, I would recommend or I would suggest that you pay deep attention to what we are learning today or what we'll be learning from today going forward, because it involves what you'll be doing to help your team members, especially the engineering team, to understand what the solution is about, to understand how to build the solution. So we'll take a look at the different classifications of functional requirements. Now, put this at the top of your mind, right? Every project you find yourself and any project you find yourself, one of the challenges that junior business analysts or new BAs used to have always, and I get that question a lot, is I don't know what functionalities the solution should have. These are the questions they always have. Or they'll have questions in the line of, I don't know what to ask stakeholders in terms of requirement elicitation. Now, one way to be able to understand the kind of elicitation to get the kind of requirements to elicit from your stakeholders, or one way to understand how to capture or document your requirement elicitation questions, your open-ended requirement elicitation questions, is for you to understand the different classifications of functional requirements. By the time you are able to know the different classifications of the functional requirement that you would need to know for that system, you can document your requirement elicitation questions in line with those functionalities. Now, when I say in line with those functionalities, I'm not saying you know I'm not saying you know the name of the functionalities. Let me give an instance. I don't have any experience in, or I've not done any projects that relates to IoT, Internet of Things, right? But if tomorrow you put me in any project that has to do with Internet of Things, and you want me to conduct an interview or requirement elicitation with stakeholders to elicit requirements for an Internet of Things or IoT solution, what I'll basically do is this. I'll write out questions that relates to the business in terms of what is the objectives of this project, or what is the objective of the business in line with this project. So I'll write out questions that relates to the business, right? 2, I'll write out questions that relate to stakeholders. How does this Internet of Things project, does the process exist for the business, or how does stakeholders currently carry out these activities, right, that we want to automate using Internet of Things? That is 2. Then 3, I will now outline questions that speaks to functional requirements. First, I'll take authorization. How would users authorize or gain access to the service or to the solution? How would users perform activities? So you say this is a process that you currently do physically. How do you want to perform the activity on the Internet of Things solution? So you outline your requirements, your elicitation question based on this classification of the functional requirements. Now, let's take a look at these classifications one after the other, starting with authorization, right? Starting with authorization. Now, authorization requirements or authorization is a type of functional requirement that speaks with approvals that speaks with authorizing, right? Let me give an instance here. I'm going to give different examples so that you understand that this is what you do on a day-to-day basis. And the actual technical name is called authorization, right? Now, I believe we all use mobile apps, right? Banking mobile apps, right? If you don't use financial mobile app to make transactions, let me just know. I want to give an example using our bank mobile apps. If you use it, please type yes. If you don't use, please type no. That's if you go to the bank to do your business. Please, I would like every one of us to communicate. I don't like the fact that when I ask something for us to type a yes or no, and some people are not participating, I'm not comfortable with that. So please, if you use a mobile app for transaction on your phone, type yes. If you don't, or if it has been a long time you used one, simply type no, okay? All right, we all use Bit, right? So now, in your banking mobile app, it could be Lloyds Bank, it could be FCMB, it could be Access, it could be Barclays, right? It could be HSBC, it could be Monzo, it could be Revolut, whichever one it is, right? It could be whatever bank, basically, wherever you are, whichever one is your preference. Now, you agree with me that if you want to send money to me, you say, oh, Genesis, please send me your account details. I want to send money to you so you can help me purchase a certification or help me whatever, depending. So if you want to send money to me, you agree with me that you won't just enter my name, enter my account information, and then click on send and the money will send. No. Your mobile app would need you to authorize that you actually want to send that money to me. And what's the use, basically, some banks' mobile app use your facial recognition for authorization. Some will need you to use your fingerprints for authorization. Some will use you to use a transaction PIN, maybe a 4-digit transaction PIN or a transaction password. Or they will need you to use an OTP or a token to authorize that particular transaction. That is what we call an authorization functionality or an authorization functional requirements. So any requirements that would need the user to authorize, to approve, right? To give the approval for an event or for a task to be performed on their behalf is what we call authorization requirements or functional requirements that relate to authorization. You can also agree with me that in the past, if you want to withdraw money from your bank, irrespective of how beautiful your handwriting is, or irrespective of the amount you want to put there, you must ensure you provide your signature on the check or on the withdrawal slip. That signature you provide there is the authorization that the modern bank or the traditional bank uses in processing your transaction. So your signature is the authorization. So the equivalent of your signature that you provide when you go to the bank to withdraw money, maybe with checks or with withdrawal slip, is your transaction PIN or your biometrics on the app. So these are authorization requirements. Another example of authorization, which we've been using it, but we don't know, is if you want to create an account on LinkedIn, or you want to create an account today, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Amazon, or whatever platform today, you realize that they'll give you options that will say, sign up with Google, right? That means they want you to, instead of having to fill the form of your name, your email address, your phone number, your full name, your first name, your last name, and what have you, they'll say, okay, we have an easier option for you, which is to either sign up with Google or sign up with Facebook. So they want you to sign up automatically with your information that is on Google, right? But before they do that, or before Google allows that particular platform, for instance, say Amazon, you want to sign up on Amazon today, right? You see sign up with Google. Before Google would allow Amazon to collect your Google data to create an account for you, Google would require you to authorize. That is why you will see things like allow. Amazon want to access such and such information from your Google accounts. You will see allow, deny. Once you tap allow, you are automatically authorizing. So that allow is an authorization. That allow button or allow function is an authorization requirement that we document in business analysis. Same thing when you download an application on your mobile app for the first time. Let's say, for instance, the first time you downloaded and installed WhatsApp, or you downloaded and you installed Telegram, or you downloaded and you installed Zoom. So let me use Zoom on your mobile phone. Now, the very first time, you agree with me that the very first time you want to make a video call or you want to do a conference call with Zoom, it will ask you to allow Zoom to have access to your microphone, allow Zoom to have access to your camera, or allow WhatsApp to have access to your contacts, or allow WhatsApp to have access to your gallery. Now, it needs you to give that authorization functionality or authorization requirements to the solution or to the system or to the product so that it can make use of the data or make use of access to those third-party solutions that you are giving it authorization for. That's an example of an authorization functional requirement, that allow button, right? So you are using, once you click that allow button, it means you have authorized that activity or that communication to progress. Now, that is authorization functional requirements. The next one is authentication. Authentication. Now, authentication is used to validate or verify access requests. What I mean by access request is this. You can agree with me today that virtually all the applications we use today, before you use them, would require you to log in. Still coming back to our banking mobile apps, our financial mobile apps. If you use a Monzo or a Lloyd or a Barclays today, before you gain access to your mobile app, you'll be required to log in, right? And For you to log in, you will need to provide your credentials. Some use username and password. Some banks use email address and password, right? Now, by the time you provide that email address and password and you click on login, right? Login button, the process of authentication kicks in. Immediately you click on login. The system or the products will want to authenticate the validity of that credential that is trying to gain access to that account. So there are different authentication, or should I say validations, that will occur by the system. Number one validation will be, assuming you're using email address and password as the credentials to log in. Immediately you tap that login button. These things happen in milliseconds. So the system functions in milliseconds. It runs, there's what we call query. It queries the database in milliseconds to check if this person should be allowed, right? So for instance, what the system will do is that it will check this email address, does it exist on the database? If yes, it will pass that. Secondly, this password, does it exist on our database? If yes, it will check it. Three, this password, does it belong to this email address? If yes, it will check it. It will pass it. 4, this password, even though it belongs to this email address, is it active for this email address? If yes, it will pass that. Then 5, this email address and password that is valid, is it valid for this device, or is it valid? I'm talking about financial mobile apps now. Is it valid for this device ID that is attempting to log in at this point? If yes, it will check it and it will pass it. If it checks all of these criteria, along with other criteria that has been specified, if everything is successful, it will now grant you access to your banking mobile app. All of these validations happen in seconds, in milliseconds. The moment you click on that login button, the authentication occurs. It will authenticate to know if you are a valid user. If at any point any of these validations fail, that is when you will get an error message that will tell you incorrect email address or password, or unable to log you in because of incorrect email address or password. Try again. So if any of these validation fails, that is when you will get this particular error message, right? So authentication speaks to verifying or validating identity of a user. Just like today, right? Someone by 11 p.m. in the middle of the night, by 11 p.m., someone knocks at your door, right? Someone knocks at your door. You're not expecting a visitor, right? But you live in a neighborhood, in a very peaceful neighborhood. Someone knocks at your door by 11 p.m. or past 11 p.m. to 12 in the midnight. You won't just go and open the door immediately and say, oh, come in. You want to ask, who is that, right? When you ask that, who is that, you are trying to authenticate. We as human beings, we are trying to authenticate the identity of that person that wants to gain access to our home, or that wants to gain access to our attention at that point. So you say, who is that? The person will say, oh, I'm Genesis. Now, assuming you have about 5 Genesises living in your neighborhood, the person says, I am Genesis. If in your brain, what your brain will do is to start authenticating which Genesis it is. When your brain hears, I am Genesis, your brain will want to authenticate with a voice. Or is it a male voice or a female voice? Assuming you know 3 Genesis that are male and 2 Genesis that are female in your neighborhood, and you hear that knock by 11 p.m. and you say, who is that? Who's at the door? And the person said, it's Genesis, right? You want to your brain will first authenticate, and your brain does these things in milliseconds. your brain will first authenticate to say, this Genesis, is it a male or female? So if it is a male voice that your brain heard, right, or a male voice that your ear communicates to the brain, your male would say, okay, it's not a female. I have three male Genesis that I know. Now, your brain will also authenticate as well. Of the three male Genesis that you know, do I know how their voices sound? Do their voice sound unique? If their voice sounds unique, your brain will try to separate the actual Genesis, to try to give you it will try to return a response of who the actual Genesis is. If your brain is unable to differentiate the particular Genesis from the three male Genesises that you know, your brain would require you to ask a follow-up question and say, which of the Genesis, please, or Genesis from where, right? And then the person will say, Genesis that lives 2 blocks away, or Genesis that lives down the streets, right? When your brain receives that information, Genesis that lives down the street, assuming there are 2 Genesises out of the 3 Genesis that lives down the street, your brain will say, oh, is it Genesis that live beside Balogun's yard, or is it Genesis that lives close to Oluwaseun's business area? I'll say, yes, Genesis that lives close to Oluwaseun business area. Now, your brain has been able to authenticate to understand the person, the actual person at the door, even before you open the door, right? Now, if you are comfortable, right? If your brain is, or your mind is now comfortable with opening the door to see that person, you will open that door. But if you are not comfortable to open the door by the middle of the night to see that person, your brain would ask a follow-up question to say, hope everything is fine. This one, you're coming to my place, or you're knocking at this time of the day. Hope everything is fine, right? So this is what our brain basically does to authenticate identity of users and to see if you should allow access to, if you should allow them access, right? By the time you ask these authentication questions and you are satisfied, you agree with me that if someone say Genesis that lives down the street, and you don't know of any Genesis that lives down the street, and the person said that Genesis that we saw today in the office, and you did not see any Genesis in the office today, it means that authentication has failed. You basically return a response and say, sorry, I don't know who you are because I can't identify you. Please, I'm sorry, I won't allow you to get into my apartment, or I'm sorry, I can't open the door, which is what a system does at the point of authentication, right? It tries to identify the identity of that person that is trying to gain access into the system. And by the time it asks all those validation questions in milliseconds, if any of them fails, unlike we humans, if someone fails one of the questions we ask, we'll say, let's give a benefit of that and ask that person another question to see if the person is true. Maybe the person did not get that question right. Unlike we humans, the system would automatically deny that person access to the account or access to the application. So these are things we call authentication. And as a business analyst or product owner or product manager, whenever you are building an IT solution, you must have authentication requirements at the back of your mind. Another one is compliance and regulatory or regulation requirements. In compliance and regulation requirements, we are talking about requirements that helps the solution to remain compliant. We know things such as GDPR, right? Now, you agree with me that whenever you are creating accounts on platforms or online, there's a feature that will tell you that I agree that I have read the privacy terms and conditions or terms of use, or that I consent, that I agree to maybe Facebook's terms and conditions of privacy use, or I consent or I agree to LinkedIn's privacy use or WhatsApp privacy use. So these are compliance requirements, right? You also agree with me that there are some other functionalities within a system that will say, if you go to your mailbox and you keep getting mail from a particular sender which you're not comfortable with, you can choose to unsubscribe from that mail, right? Or you can choose to block that mail. These are compliance requirements, basically, things that will help the user or help the application stay compliant to regulatory information. So there are some functionalities that speaks to compliance. There are functionalities that speaks to compliance, and these are the functionalities we capture in our functional requirements. Then we have external interfaces, or as we call them, third-party integrations. External interfaces or third-party integrations. We capture these things in functional requirement as well. Now, I gave an example of when you are trying to create an account on Amazon, and then Amazon asks you, do you want to sign up with Google? And if you say yes, it will take you to your Google. It will it will pop up a small dialogue, or it will redirect you to a window where you see a list of your Google accounts. You select the Google account, and Google will tell you that this is information you want to share with Amazon. Do you want to allow or deny that access? Once you click allow, Google will now share that information with Amazon, and Amazon will use that information to automatically create your account without you having to complete any account creation form, right? Now, what happens between Amazon and Google is what we call external interface communication. Amazon is trying to communicate with an external interface or an external platform or an external application, which is Google, right? And most times, before external interfaces would occur, before external interface communication would occur, you would first need to be able to, the user will first need to approve, or should I say authorize, right? Authorize that communication to go ahead. So external interfaces or third-party integrations are things we cover in functional requirement. So what should be the requirement in terms of what data should Amazon send to Google, or what data should Google send to Amazon when the external interface communication or the communication between Amazon and Google occurs on behalf of a user? What data? So Google is going to be sending user data, the user's email address, the user's first name and last name, the user's password, even the user's Google password. So Google will send the user's data to Amazon. So Amazon can use that data to create an account for that particular user. And then the next functional requirement is transaction processing. Now, in IT, when we say transaction processing, we are talking about process or tasks or activities that people do. Transaction don't necessarily, it's not limited to payments, right? When we say transaction in payments, then we are being specific to transacting, that's buying and selling, or transact in terms of finance. But in IT, when we say transaction, what are the transactions that the user will do on the application? We're basically saying what are the activities or what are the tasks that the user would perform. So when in functional requirements, we talk about the step-by-step, one after the other processes or tasks or activities that the user would perform on the application. For instance, users, when they are able to authenticate, that is login, users can check their balance, their account balance. Users can generate or download statements. Someone's mic is on. Who is this? B0076, whatever. Okay, thanks for muting your mic. Users can download their statements. Users can add a beneficiary. Users can pay for bills. Users can transfer money, or that is, users can send money. Users can create an account. All of those things are transactional activities. So we cater for those transactional activities. We outline their requirements that helps us to outline those transactional activities and state what their requirements are. And then we have reporting requirements. Reporting requirements, it is straightforward. These are requirements or functional requirements that talk about reporting. There are some mobile apps today that will give you information about your daily spending. I know I also mentioned statements. Statements are reports, right? Your transactional reports you generate from your accounts to see how much you've spent or what you've spent, right? In other applications, we have a full-fledged reporting functionality or feature that you can download different reports from the application. You can agree with me, if your place of work is automated or digitized, there might be applications that you use in your place of work, right? And sometimes you will need to get a report, maybe to generate a report from Excel or anywhere, so you can send to management from that application. Now, those reporting modules, we call them modules or functionality or features, are catered when we are documenting or specifying the functional requirements. So we talk about reporting requirement. Another one is dashboard, which falls under reporting as well, where you see beautiful things like analytics, right? Analytical reports of a particular set of activity or instances that are ongoing in a system. Now, in functional requirements, we can represent them in different ways. We have what we call high-level requirements. These are requirements that we communicate to business stakeholders on a high level. What I mean by high level, I'm not talking about jumping high and communicating them. I'm basically saying that high-level requirements are not technical and granular. They are basically high level. So example of a high level requirement is that users should be able to log in with their email address and password. That is a high level requirement, right? But if you are to go granular into epics and acceptance criteria or into use case scenarios, which is a granular or low level requirements that we communicate to engineering team, we'll say a user should be able to log in into the application with their email address and password when they are on the login page. Then we'll even go further and say that we must ensure that the email address and password match this or satisfies such and such criteria or conditions or requirements on the system. So that is a high level requirement. Then another way we communicate functional requirements is through use case scenarios, or we call them use case specification. This has always been a traditional way we use in the past to communicate functional requirements. We're going to do a practice of use case scenario. So that's what we'll be going further in the next section now. Then we have the epics, user stories, and acceptance criteria, which is now the conventional or the new age way we use in communicating functional requirements. Before we go to the next scenario, which we are going to delve into practice, which is use case scenario. I don't know if you have, before we go to the next section rather, I don't know if you have any question whatsoever on what we've learned or what I've been discussing in the past 45 minutes on functional requirements, classifications of functional requirements, and also how we communicate functional requirements. If you also need clarity on some of the things I've said, right? please let me know, because this is very important for you to understand this. Many people would be confused when they get on a project and they don't know where to start or what to start or what to say. All right. So do you have any question?
I have a question, please.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, please, do you mind repeating external interfaces?
Awesome. All right. So external interfaces, right? Now, let me give another example of external interface that you know, right? When you download WhatsApp into your phone, right, and you install it, the very first time you download and install WhatsApp and you log in with your phone number, right? Now, WhatsApp will tell you to grant it access to your contacts, isn't it? Did WhatsApp do that? Did WhatsApp request for you to have access to your contacts?
Yes.
Did it also request to have access to your phone gallery?
Okay.
If you want to share your pictures.
Oh yeah.
And if you want to make call for the very first time with WhatsApp, it would request you grant access to your microphone, right? And as well access to your audio. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Now, your contacts on your mobile phone is an application, right? WhatsApp is also an application on your mobile phone, right? Now, for WhatsApp to function optimally or for WhatsApp to behave the way you want it, WhatsApp leverages on contacts, isn't it? Your contact, it will sync your contacts and show you the contacts that you have that are currently on WhatsApp so you can chat with them, isn't it? Now, for that to happen, you need to allow WhatsApp. When you allow WhatsApp to have access to your contact, WhatsApp and your phone contact would communicate with each other. So let me give an instance, right? Let me give an instance. Let me use the example of Genesis coming to visit you at the middle of the night or coming to knock at your door. After you have finished authenticating to say, oh, is this person really Genesis? And you say yes, right? Then you can now open the door to know what information the person needs from you, right? What information the person requires from you, or what information you will be giving the person, isn't it? Or the information you need from the person. Now, in external interface communication, they're talking about integration. Now, there are different ways internal interfaces communicate with each other. Number one is what we call API. I don't know if you've heard the word API before. Has anyone heard of the word API before? So API stands for Application Programming Interface. Have you seen the word interface comes up here? API. This is one of the ways two different applications communicate with each other. Application Programming Interface, API, right? If you are in IT, you would hear this a lot. If you are working on a project that will require the application you are building to communicate or fetch data or send data to another external application, you will hear about APIs, Application Programming Interface. Now, this is an example of what an API does. Let me give you guys an example. Imagine yourself in a restaurant, in a beautiful restaurant with your loved one. You are going to celebrate Valentine or Christmas or anniversary, and you thought to go to a restaurant to have a wonderful meal. Now, when you get to the restaurant and both of you sit down, you have a waiter, right, that will come and attend to you. Yes or no? And then we have the kitchen, right? You are not seeing the chef or the cook, right? That is in the kitchen. that will prepare what you're going to order. All you're going to see is the waiter, who is the person you're going to interact with. You and your partner, you're on the table there, right? On the dinner table, in the restaurant there, and then the waiter comes. The waiter will ask you, good evening, ma, good evening, sir. What can I get for you? Or basically place your order. Then you place your order and say, okay, I want this, this, and this, right? Now, the waiter will take your order back to the kitchen and say, we have a client that says he wants or she wants this, this, and this. The kitchen will look and say, oh, so sorry. The kitchen will check if they have that meal or if they have the ingredients to prepare that meal. If the kitchen has that meal, the kitchen will give the waiter information to say the meal will be ready or their order will be ready in 5 minutes or in 3 minutes or in 10 minutes. If the kitchen does not have the meal, but they have the ingredients to prepare that meal, we'll also give you a timeline or an information on at what time or how long it will take for that meal to be prepared. Now, the waiter will come back to you and communicate to you and your partner to say, the meal is ready, but your order will be ready in the next 5 minutes, or your order will be ready in the next 30 minutes. But before then, can I give you this? Can I serve you some champagne or wine or drink for you to just get along while you wait for your order, right? Now, that waiter, right? That waiter, imagine and relate that waiter to what we call API. The kitchen or the chef is an external interface. It's another, when you say external interface, you mean a third-party application, another application. So the kitchen is another application. You and your partner, you are also another application. So assuming you and your partner is WhatsApp, the kitchen is your phone book or your contacts. Now, you need an order. You and your partner, you need the information of people on someone's contact lists, right? Then you send that communication via API to tell the kitchen, I need all the lists or I need all the names of people on the user's contacts. Provide it to me. The kitchen will say, okay, I have 50 contacts for this person. I'm going to send you all 50. I will send it to you in the next 2 milliseconds. The waiter will come and tell you that, okay, the contacts you requested for, or the list of contacts you requested from the contact application would be available in the next 2 milliseconds. WhatsApp will say, okay, I'm ready to wait. And then the kitchen, which is the contact, will prepare all the contact lists, send it to the waiter through API, then the waiter will send it to WhatsApp. And that is how you now see sometimes when you install WhatsApp for the first time, it will tell you that we are loading your contacts or we are preparing your chats for you. WhatsApp is basically trying to fetch that information from the contacts to know, okay, please contacts, be giving me all the list of people that you have. So I'll check if these people have accounts on WhatsApp. That is an example of how API works. That API is the waiter. You and your partner are the client, or you are an application that needs a request to be done for you to be satisfied. You are placing an order through the waiter. The kitchen is another application that would provide you information on your order, and then you're able to process, you're able to communicate as the case may be. And then you will instruct the API to tell the contacts that anytime a new contact is added, please send that new contact to me. So that is why if you want to chat with me today and you don't have my number, you ask me to send my number to you so you can add me as a contact on your phone book. Immediately you add me as a contact, because WhatsApp and your contact has established a communication through API, automatically the contact will send my name to WhatsApp, and WhatsApp will show you that I'm available as a chat for you on WhatsApp. Does that help to clarify external interface for you, Eve? Or
Yes.
does that add more context to it?
No, thank you. That's good. Thank you.
So we have several other external interface communication. I just talked about one, which is API. We have another one called SDK, Software Development Tool. Let me also write it. Development Kits, SDK. We have what we call webhooks, right? So there are several of them, but the most common is API, SDK, webhooks, but they all, not that they function the same way, but the objectives are basically sharing or enhancing communication between external interfaces. They are all used for communication between external interfaces. SDK is embedded in the application. API is not embedded. Webhooks is just to listen to communication. Do you understand? So for webhooks, we are not integrated. We are not using APIs. All we need to do is when something happens, an event will be communicated. But for API will just make that request and wait. Whenever we want to get information about the kitchen again, so let me give an instance. Let me use the waiter to give examples of how API and webhook acts. Now, for API, how API acts is this. Assuming if the waiter told you guys that your food will be ready in 30 minutes, then you waited for 30 minutes, you've not gotten any response from the waiter have not come back to come and give you an update about your food. You will call the waiter, say, waiter, please, what's delaying my meal? It's been over 30 minutes, you told me to be ready, and it's not ready yet. The waiter will say, oh, sorry, let me check back with the kitchen, right? The waiter will go back to the kitchen and say, I'm sorry, kitchen, this food is supposed to be ready in 30 minutes. What is happening? Kitchen will say, oh, so sorry, a delay occurred. We are trying to fry one of the plantains and some of them got burnt, so we are frying a fresh plantain. Please bear with us. Then the waiter will come and communicate to you. So you will try to trigger the waiter. The waiter would now act and then get in touch with you. That is how API works in a high-level layman language. But for webhooks, the way webhooks works is that you don't need to be asking the waiter, how far with my meal is it available? What webhooks basically does is that as a waiter, once there's an update from the kitchen, the webhook would automatically, or the waiter would automatically communicate that to you. So you don't need to make the request before it will communicate to you the status of things. Once an event occurs, a webhook or a communication will be triggered automatically from that external interface and sent to you to say, okay, this is the status of things. Please update the customers that their food will take longer than 30 minutes because something has just happened, right? Or this is the status of things. Please let the customers know that their meal will be ready before the given time, right? So that is how webhooks and APIs work on a high level, but they are basically used for external interface communication. Is that okay? I don't want to go so technical and you guys might get confused, but as you, I would suggest you go further to read API, go further to read SDK, go further to read webhooks. Search out this. The informations are available online. They are available on Google. Just type what's an SDK and you get explanations from different search results, what SDK, webhooks, or APIs are. I'll basically type them out on the chat, so you can just type them and read more about them. Don't read about them now, so you won't be distracted in the flow of the class. At the end of the class, it's called further reading. You go ahead and read. So let's go ahead to use case scenario, which is what we'll be practicalizing today. So a use case scenario or a use case specification, whichever one you want to call it, represents the sequence of events along with the information that relates to that use case. Now, use case is a tricky word, right? It's a tricky word that means several things in different contexts. Depending on the context, use case could mean something absolutely different from what we are talking about today. So let me give an instance now. If I'm talking about from a product standpoint, how a customer would use a product, I can talk about a use case, different use case or different scenarios of a customer's. So let's say, for instance, scenario one, the customer, or the first use case is that a customer that wants to, okay, let me give an instance now. If I want to talk about customers' ability or users' ability to send money globally, right? To send and receive money globally. And I want to talk about the different use cases that are applicable to sending and receiving money globally. I could say that the first use case speaks to when a user or when a customer wants to send money to Japan. So a customer that wants to send money to Japan will basically use our SWIFT and IBAN infrastructure to send money. The second use case is for a customer that wants to send money to, let's say, a domestic recipient. You are in the UK, you want to send money to someone in the UK. You basically use your sort code and account number to send that money to someone within the UK. But if you want to send to someone outside of the UK, maybe to Japan or China or Nigeria or Jamaica or US, you're going to use sort code. You're going to use your SWIFT and IBAN information. So that is where we talk about use case, right? Creating scenarios. But when we are talking about functional requirements, and we mentioned the word use case, we are talking about the functionalities of the solution. What are the functionalities of the solution and the information that we communicated along with it? Now, a use case scenario has a typical template, a typical structure. And what I'll be doing going forward is for every thing we are going to discuss, I'm going to walk you guys through the typical, or should I say the standard templates, or should I say the skeletal structure, so that once you know the fundamentals or the standard or the skeletal structure, you can flesh it out whenever you are working. Now, a use case scenario has a typical template. Number one is the use case ID. 2 is the overview. 3 is the preconditions. 4 is the user flow, or you can call it the basic flow. 5 is the post condition. 6 is the alternative parts. And 7, which is the last one, is the business rules. I'm going to explain all of this one after the other. So here is a typical structure of a use case scenario. So we have the overview, where in overview, some people just put overview, or some people basically don't put it and then put the details of the overview, where you talk about the use case ID, the title of the use case. Title of the use case is where you talk about the title of the basic flow. For instance, if you want to write a use case scenario for login, the title of your use case would be user login or customer login or candidate login or student login. That will be the title. Then we have the description. Description is where you give a short explanation or a short summary or description of what that use case, of what that functionality will be doing. So let's say if the use case ID is, if the title of the use case is login, a short description for it would be, this use case explains how a student should be able to log in to the e-learning platform, or how a student should be able to log in to the Learn with Pride Learning Management Solution, LMS, right? That is a short description. And then the next one is actors and interfaces. In this instance, we explain who the various actors, or should I say users, would be. So since we said the actors here, or the user, or since we said in the description that this use case explains how a students. So in the actors section, we would specify a student as the actor. If this use case would be utilized by external interfaces, we would also specify or write out the external interface, that is third-party applications that will be involved in this use case. Then preconditions, we basically state what conditions must be fulfilled, must be ready, must be achieved before this use case can begin to, before users can perform this use case, basically. So let me give an instance. If you want to log in into an account, you agree with me that you can't log in until you have created an account, isn't it? So let's assume today you've not heard about LinkedIn before, or you've heard about LinkedIn, but you don't have a LinkedIn account. There's no way you can log in into LinkedIn because you don't have an account. If you go to the login page and then you click, you enter a random email address and enter a random password and click on login, it will not allow you to log in because you have not satisfied a precondition. That precondition is that the user must have created an account. So when writing a use case scenario, it is important for us to capture any preconditions that are necessary to be satisfied before the use case can actually be performed or can actually be executed. So before someone can log in, one of the preconditions is that the user must first create an account. After the preconditions, we now talk about the basic flow or user flow, which is a step-by-step sequence with which the user would perform that particular task. So step 1, the user will do this. Step 2, the user will do this. Step 3, the user will do this. Step 4, the user will do this. Step 5, the user will do this. How many steps are involved? You itemize each and every one of them, list out the tasks that will be performed. Then in the post condition talks about what will be the next state of the application after that use case has been completed rather. So if you have logged in successfully, what will be the next condition or what will be the next state or situation that you have? I believe the next state will be that the user would have access to their account. So account access is the post condition to login. And then we have the alternative flow. What alternative flow speaks to is this basic flow of login. Enter your email address, enter your password, click on login. Is there an alternative way that a user can follow or an alternative approach that the user can use to log in without having to enter email address, password, and clicking on the login button? Yes. One of the major alternative flow, which I've been saying severally, is most applications today will tell you log in with Google, right? When you're logging with Google, you will not enter your email address or password or whatever. All you have to do is just to click on that Google, then Google will the platform will communicate with Google to get your data and then log you in if your Google data or your Google credentials are valid on that platform. Same thing with sign up. You have option to enter your first name, last name, email address, fill the form online to sign up, or fill the form online to create account, or fill the form online to register. But you can actually register or sign up with Google. And once you click on that, automatically your information on Google will be made available, and that will be used to create an account for you. So that is an alternative path or an alternative approach that some of these systems have, right? So you talk about the basic flow. An alternative flow is the alternative paths that the user can follow to perform that particular use case. The use case here is to log in, right? And the basic flow to log in is to enter email address, password, and click on the login button, right? But there's an alternative path that the user can follow to log in by selecting log in or sign in with Google, and automatically the person will sign in with their Google account without having to click on the sign in button, without having to provide their email address, without having to provide their password. And then we have the business rules. The business rules are the acceptance criteria. What are the rules that needs to be satisfied for this requirement, for this use case, for this functionality to be implemented? Now, here's an example of a use case scenario. This is for account creation. Just a very brief example for account creation. The title is create account. Description is account creation on an e-learning solution, basically. Description is this use case explains how a student should create account on the e-learning solution. Actors and interfaces is student. The actor here is a student. Precondition is that the student must have a valid email address, and the student or the user should be on the registration page of the application. Basic flow is that user enters first name, user will enter their last name, user will enter their email address, user will enter their password, user will confirm password, and user clicks on the create account button. Post condition is that user receives a mail to verify their email address. And you agree with me, whenever you're creating an account, after you've filled up all the whole form and you click on create account, you'll be required to verify your email. So that's a post condition, email verification. Alternative part is that user can do that from the teacher, book a teacher menu, or can use Google to create accounts. Business rules is that password must be alphanumeric and must contain at least one special character. Password must be between 6 to 12 characters. The create account button must be disabled until the user has completed all the input fields. We should only accept correct email address formats, such as hello@yourmail.com. Now, this is a sample use case scenario, and it's what we're going to be looking at today. I'm going to be writing a sample use case scenario for a requirement, but I don't know if you have any question before we go into the practice. Do we have any question?
No. Fire on, sir.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to confirm something. This use case scenario is like a what would I call it? An FRD, right?
Yes, you can use it in you can put it, yes, you put it in your FRD. Functional requirement. It's a functional requirement. Use it to represent functional requirements.
Oh, okay. And secondly, as a business analyst, are we the one to write all these stories every time? Or
Everything.
there's
That's
an
what they're paying you
application
for.
that will just
That's what they're paying you for.
Oh God.
So if a system has, if an application has 20 functionalities or 50 functionalities, you have to write everything. The more functionalities they discover, the more you write. In my place of work, we've written over 3,000 requirements, user stories. Over 3,000 user stories.
Okay, so I want to confirm something again. So for example, like this the sample you share now.
Yeah.
So if for example I'm writing something that's a bit related to this, is it possible to just do like a copy and paste and just edit some of the...
So I won't say do copy and paste. It won't help you. So when you do copy and paste in IT, I know I shared my story, that was on Thursday, right? Yeah. You might cause a lot of harm to the team. If anything is not clear to you, speak out, right? Get clarity as much as possible. Yes, there are some things that are relatable, right? You can pick from what others have done. but projects differ. Now, you talk about create accounts. The way, you agree with me, the way you create accounts on Facebook, right, is different from the way you create accounts on LinkedIn. And it's different from the way you create accounts even on your Google. It's different from the way you create account on Amazon. It's still the same create accounts, but it differs. It might be that the information differ, or the way the system behaves or responds to error messages differ as well. Are you getting me now? So some things are similar, but don't copy and paste. What I will basically tell you is understand what is required. This is a template here, right? And that is why I took time to explain each section of this template, what they are. So if you are to write anyone, all you need to do is ask yourself that who is the actor? Are there actors? If there are actors, who are the actors that will be using this login functionality? You list them out. This login functionality, is it going to communicate with an external interface? If yes, you write out the external interface. Preconditions, and these are the things you ask your, that's why you have workshop, whereby you conduct workshop with the technical team. If you're not so clear, let them give you inputs. They are stakeholders. You can elicit requirements from them. Do you get? So feel free to ask questions in areas that are not clear to you. Because if things are not clear to you and you go ahead to just document or you do copy and paste, I bet you if someone in your team does not point that out, the team will end up building that thing, spending energy to build it. And then at the end of the day, you realize the mistakes and problems that you've caused for your team and for the business. Yeah. Blessing. Sheon, your hands are up. Ladies first.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you. I wanted to ask, because I know I think one of the lessons, the day you were showing us what a BRD looks like.
Yeah.
I know you showed I think that should be a use case diagram. So I mean, is it actually different from this use case scenario?
Yes. So use case diagram is the model of use case specification.
Okay.
So a use case diagram just draws the diagram to show how the actor interacts with the system. So the functionalities the actors will be having access to on the system. But the use case scenario goes ahead to give details. It's a lot more detailed. Give details about that functionality. How will it be used step by step? What needs to be satisfied in terms of preconditions and postconditions? What are the business rules that need to be satisfied? So a use case scenario helps to flesh out a use case model. But when the sequence of work is that you first draw your use case model, that's your use case diagram, and from there you now write out your use case scenarios.
All right, thank you for that. Yes.
You're welcome. Okay, Sheon.
Yeah. So my own question is just simple. You know, this use case scenario, like this template we are following.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there a standard template like this so that, you know, like, okay, if the
That's what I'm
title
showing
is,
you.
yeah, so it's the standard, but we will now like use it according to the project we're working on.
Yes, yes.
I will follow these basic rules, like, okay, the title, the description, who are
Exactly.
my actors, the regulators, what are
Yeah.
the preconditions and all that. I will now be
Exactly.
everything based.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So,
Every use case scenario has this structure. Every standard use case scenario.
okay.
So I've not just come up with this. I've been using this for all the while in my career. And even before I prepared my lesson notes, I made sure I went through the web to scour through to know what are people using, what are the standards. Okay. So you can use this anywhere confidently. Do you understand? All right. Any other question before we go into practice? All right. Awesome. So let me share my web browser so that you can see Yeah. Let me know when you can see my web browser. Oh, am I still sharing my use case, my PowerPoint presentation?
It looks like.
It should be my web browser that you should be seeing. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone can see my Google Chrome, right?
I can see.
Okay. Now let me just give you guys an example of what I was talking about in terms of alternate food. Let me type Amazon. So with Amazon, let me go to new customer, start here. That's to create an account. You see, you can enter your name, or let me go to login rather. I think in logins, oh, login does not have, login, Amazon has this now. Let me go. They have that create account with Google.
No, I
They have
can't
it. I don't know if
remember.
they've changed. Let me check. If I type Facebook, I think my Facebook would come up here. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, a call came through my phone. I want to get something, and most of these applications I have logged into LinkedIn, so I know that's well LinkedIn. Or let me do I should go to login. Hope it's not automatically log me in to the account that I have here. Oh, it's automatically logged me in. But notwithstanding, let's not delay, let's not beat around the bush. I've basically explained all of this in during the class when I talk about authentication, authorization, and the rest. So we are going to be using this. This is a high-level requirement. This is an example of a high-level requirement. Remember I said there are different ways we specify functional requirements. An example is high-level requirements. You can the short form is HLR, high-level requirements, HLR. So that is the functionality, HLR. Now, I collated a high-level requirements from one of the projects I've done. The last time I did this project was 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 or 4 years ago. So it's an e-voting solution. And we're going to be using IIBA as the stakeholder here. So we've done the requirement elicitation and then documented the high-level requirements from what IIBA gave to us. Okay. Now, I want someone to read out the requirements so that we can all follow along. Please follow along with the requirement. Try and listen through to understand what the reader is saying, so you understand what the requirement is. By the time I begin to practice, it will be confusing to you, right? So let me look for someone that I will delegate to read it, someone that has not spoken today. Dio, how are you? I wouldn't call Dio, are you there? Hello, Dio. Hello, Oladayo. Can you hear me? All right. Kemi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So, Kemi, please, I'd like you to help read out the requirements. Do you need me to zoom in? Okay, there's
A little bit, please.
okay, there's noise in your background, so I'll go to another person so that there'll be no
Sorry,
interference, okay? Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Let me look for someone else. Okay. Blessing. Can you hear me, Blessing?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Your background seems quiet and calm. Can you help read out these requirements? Let me just zoom in the more so to be much more legible to you. Okay, so start from the beginning. You're going to read out the entire 23 requirements. So
Wow.
you can start.
Okay. Requirement elicitation results for International Institute of Business Analysis, IIBA, e-voting solution. One, there will be 3 types of users on the solution, which are super admin, who is in charge of configuring the system, uploading data of eligible voters, and uploading the data of candidates, exporting reports. Then B, election monitoring committee, who will be responsible for starting the election, closing the election, publishing election results. Then C, these are members of the institute who will be responsible for casting votes on the e-voting solution. And super admin should be able to generate and send login credentials, membership ID, and one-time password to eligible voters. 2, eligible voters should be able to log into the e-voting with their membership ID and password. 3, for a first-time login, the eligible voter will be required to change the password. A, upon successful password change, the eligible voter should be required to log in with the new password and membership ID. B, to reset the password, the eligible voter will need to provide current password, new password, and confirm the new password. Upon resetting the password, the eligible voter will be required to log in with the new password and membership ID. 4, all users should be able to log out. 5, the system should log out eligible voters who are not active on the system after 5 minutes of inactivity. 6, eligible voters should be able to view the various vacant positions. 7, eligible voters should be able to view the manifesto or profile of all candidates. 8, there are 3 positions that candidates will be vying for. A, president, B, vice president, C, secretary. 9, an eligible voter cannot select more than one candidate for each position. 10, the system must not accept more than 3 vote selection from the eligible voter. 11, eligible voters should be able to submit their vote. 12, eligible voters should receive a vote acknowledgement receipt via mail when they have successfully submitted a vote. 13, an eligible voter cannot vote more than once. 14, eligible voters should be able to rate their experience after casting their vote. 15, the administrator should be able to upload the candidate information manifesto or profile on the system before the election starts. 16, the administrator should be able to upload a list of eligible voters before the start of the election. Okay, thank you. 17, there should be a countdown timer showing the number of days, hours, minutes left to the close of the election. 18, the election monitoring committee should be able to open and close the election. 19, the election monitoring committee should be able to download the results of the election. 20, the EMC should be able to vote, hence they can perform all activities that an eligible voter can perform. 21, voters cast must be stored securely on the e-voting database. 22. The e-voting system shall be subject to auditing by our auditing partners, EY or PwC. A. The auditing will occur before and after the election period. B. The first audit will happen before the start of the election, and the purpose of this is to verify that no voting data has been captured on the IIBA e-voting database prior to the election. C. The second audit will happen after the election has ended, and the purpose will be to ensure that all votes results are credible. 23. We shall be publishing the election results to our website after the close of the election activity. A. The publishing will be automatic and done immediately after the EMC closes the election. B. Hence, we will be integrating the IIBA website into the IIBA e-voting solution.
All right, thank you so much, Blessing, for that walkthrough. So, yeah. So, do you guys, does anyone understand the requirements that Blessing has just read through? Does anyone understand the requirements that Blessing has just read through? And make this landscape. Okay. And anyone help summarize? Let me see, understand. Let me do for okay, iPhone names. Emmanuel, can you help summarize the requirements that Blessing just read? What you understand from it? Can you hear me, Emmanuel?
Yes. Sorry, I'm actually at work, so I'm planning to go back through this like afterwards.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Ade, can you give a summary from your own standpoint, what you understand from the requirements?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Ade, go ahead.
Okay, from my own standpoint, I think this is just a requirement for this to be implemented, to be passed over, so that the engineering knows what they have to put in place, or to prevent any defect from applying the solution.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
If I'd like to understand, if what is your understanding of the requirements of these requirements? What do you think we are about to build, and what are the functionalities of what you're about to build?
From my understanding, I mean, I don't know how I'm gonna like shorten this whole information here, but like from my understanding, it's just like a step-to-step how should I say it? Step-to-step things that like a user is gonna face, I don't know, logging into this voting platform.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can I try?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think going through it, I think it's an e-voting, electronic voting solution that, what it will do, who will manage it, what like if you look at it, they said you must have the super admin, you must have a committee that will be monitoring the election, and you also have the voters who will be voting. So I think the solution is being designed in such a way, is a three-fold code. from the admin managing the back end, the monitoring committee, who was also like an external person who ensure that they'll monitor the whole end of the election from beginning to the end, and also publishing, and also the voters who will also have access, to be able to vote, and the requirement for them to be able to vote, to register, and all that. So I think it's a complete solution for election purposes. What each party will be, doing, those who have control, those who are just users, and those who are also monitoring.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Seun and everyone. So let's just go ahead, right? Let me give an explanation, right? So, Femi, can you help me mute your mic? Okay, thank you. So one thing about this is this. Remember I said we are going into IT. We are going to heavily treat IT in this next coming classes. When you find yourself in a project as a PA, two things can happen. One, it could be that you join the project halfway, or two, you join the project when it's about to start, right? Now, when you join a project at the beginning, you obviously be the one responsible for gathering requirements, right? That's eliciting requirements. And sometimes in gathering requirements, the stakeholders or the clients might just send you their list of requirements like this. They'll send it to you as a document. Some they can send you as a spreadsheet, right? To send it to you as a spreadsheet, that this is their list of requirements that you should read and understand. They might not have time to actually sit one-on-one with you to explain these things to you. They'll just send it across to you. That's what happens. But you basically elicit those requirements. Two, the second scenario whereby you join the project halfway. When you join the project halfway, it means that somebody has already documented requirements, right? And given to you to continue from where they are, right? Or to see the project to completion. Now, it is required of us as business analysts to learn to read the requirements and translate it in our head, how they would work or how the solution would function. Even though we might not get it perfectly, but it is part of what we need to build as a soft skill in business analysis, which is, they call it solutioning. Solutioning. Sometimes it could be a problem for us. Do you understand? When you are always when your first line of action is to solution, it could be a problem. But it's a very good thing to always think about the solution. Be solution driven, right? Ideally, the first thing would be for you to be problem driven. Think about the problem, then the solution comes up. But in scenarios like this, solutioning is very important. Now, when you look at these high-level requirements that Blessing has read expressly and wonderfully, one of the things you should be able to know is that IBA, who is a client or who is the person that wants to use this solution, IBA, right? What is the solution about? E-voting. So we want to build an e-voting solution for IIBA. That is the number one thing, right? So you want to identify the users and the solution, right? Sorry, you want to identify the clients and the solution. Then two, who are the users of the solution? The super admin, the EMC, and eligible voters. What are their functionalities, or what are their responsibilities, right? Or what functions will they be carrying out? Super admin will be configuring the system, managing the system, managing data, exporting reports. EMC is responsible for starting and closing the election and publishing election results, while eligible voter is responsible for casting votes. So you've established what is the solution, who are we delivering the solution for, who are the users of the solution, what are the functionalities, or what functions will the users be performing on a system? Once you've been able to identify this, you have done like 70% of the solution you need. Then the remaining 30% is now for you to understand how would the solution work, or how should it work. Once you're able to know what the solution is, who you are building it for, the people that will be using the solution, what functions they'll be performing, and then how will the solution work or operate. Once you can confidently or accurately articulate this information, you have gotten a knack, or you've gotten a grasp of what the requirements is, or what the solution be. Now, an e-voting solution for IIBA Nigeria, IIBA Global or IIBA Nigeria or IIBA UK, that will allow a super admin user to manage the system from the back end, and there will be an election monitoring committee, EMC, from IIBA that will help to ensure, or that will help to monitor the election by starting the election, closing the election, and publishing election results. There will also be what we call eligible voters that can gain access to the e-voting to cast their votes. And when they finish casting their votes, the EMC can download the results of the election and publish it to the IIBA website. But before the election starts, PwC or EY, which is the auditing partner for IIBA, would first come and audit the system to ensure that the system is ready, that there are no election data in the system before the election starts, and all of that. And at the end of the election, EY or PwC will come again to audit the result of the election to ensure that it is credible. There is no manipulation. There is no data duplication. There is no forgery that has occurred on this system. Now, in a nutshell, that is what the solution is about. Now, there are several functionalities of this e-voting solution. Several functionalities.
Hello, Genesis, I can hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So there are several functionalities of the e-voting solution, right? And by the time you'll be able to identify this, so let me write out some of the functionalities. We have something like, we have the login, we have the vote casting, which is cast votes, start election, close election. We have the download reports. We have the publish results. We have the upload eligible voter data. We have the upload, or let me just say data management. Manage data, where you upload eligible voters data, and you also upload the candidates data as well. We have the user management, where you manage different users, you create users, right? We will have the system configuration. We have the system configuration. Then we'll have the we have the I've talked about cast votes, right? So these are like the basic functions that will be performed on this e-voting solution. Now, the first thing we'll be looking at today, or what I'm going to use to do practice today. So sorry, guys, I know we're going to extend the class beyond the usual 2 hours. So we should be ending by 11:30. I'll try to limit it to 11:30, but because I had to spend time to do a lot of explanation, I prefer you guys understand it than me just trying to rush to meet up with time and you don't understand. Okay, so just bear with me. We'll be ending today's class by 11:30. Hope you guys are fine. Hope nobody's going to frown. If you're going to frown, just type "I'll frown." So I'll know those that will frown. The next time, if I know the number of those that will frown are much, I will not be as detailed as possible. All right, don't mind. So today I'm going to write a use case specification for logging. Right? I'm going to write a use case specification for logging. So let's look at the requirements that were stated for logging. Right? And I'm going to do, there are different logins. Remember, admin will log in, eligible voter will log in, even EMC will also log in, right? Well, let me do eligible voter login. Eligible voter login, right? Login functionality for the eligible voter. So now, so here is where the requirements for eligible voter login comes in. Say for eligible voters, that's eligible voters should be able to log into the e-voting solution with what?
Membership ID and password.
Membership ID and password. It goes ahead to say, for a first-time login, the eligible voter will be required to what?
Change the password.
Yeah. And upon successful password change, the eligible voter will be required to do what?
Log in with the new password and membership ID.
Mm-hmm. So this is the process to change or reset password. What does it say?
To reset password, the eligible voter will need to provide current password, new password, and confirm new password.
Awesome. So this is where we can find the requirements for eligible voter to what? Log into the e-voting solution. And that is where we are going to be, you see these two requirements that we have here, we are going to be expanding it using use case scenario to make it much more detailed for engineers to understand how to build it. Okay, so now let's start. So I'm going to pull up my table. Remember that our use case scenario is always in a tabular form. So I'll say use case ID. Let me put this here. Use case ID US 001. Remember, I always tell you guys that when we're looking at that BRD and FRD, I talk about requirements identification, your requirements being unique. So no matter whatever document or platform you are using, always ensure you assign an ID to every requirement you write. It should be your number one, like it should be your default, it should be part of your default things you do as a BA for every requirement you want to write. Assign a unique ID to that requirement. It's very important. Now, use case ID, use case title. I think I'm missing case here. So use case ID, use case title, eligible voter login, right? Now, use case description, or you can just say description. If you want, you can just leave it as description or use case description, whichever one is this. So description. This use case explains how eligible voters will be able to log in to the
Solution.
IIBA e-voting solution in order for them to participate in the IIBA 2023 executive election cycle, right? That's the description. you've basically described what this login feature is for them to be able to log in so they can participate in the election. Right? Now, the next one is talk about actors who will be using this functionality, eligible voter. Right? The next one is to talk about the preconditions. Right? Precondition is that if you look at here, there's a precondition that's stated here that says, let me, where is that place?
Can you split your screen? Maybe that will be easier.
No, don't worry.
Okay.
One of the precondition here is that the system admin would upload the list of eligible voters before the start of the election. Remember that the eligible voters will need to log in at the start of the election. So before the election starts, the list of eligible voters will be uploaded on the system so that once they are logging in, the system would verify if that person is an eligible voter. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So a precondition here will be that super admin has uploaded
list of eligible voters.
Eligible voter data. Another one is a super admin. EMC has opened the election, right? If election is not opened, nobody can log in to start casting their votes or participate in the election. So EMC has opened the election, right? Oh, sorry. Another one is that eligible vote, user qualifies as an eligible or user has a valid IIBA membership ID and password. So I'll say super admin has sent login password, or I'm not saying super admin now. User has received system generated password. User has received system generated password and user has a valid membership ID. Yeah, let me separate them that way so they are unique. Now, these are the preconditions for this use case to be performed, right? Now, the next one is we now talk about the basic flow. Basic flow to login. So number one is the user enters membership ID. User enters password. User clicks on the login button. This is the process to login. Enter your membership ID, enter your password, you click on the login button, right? Now, the next one is to look at the post condition. Post condition is one, what will happen when the user logs in? One is user gains access to the e-voting accounts. Another post condition there is that if the eligible voter is logging in for the first time, we'll have to reset password. That's another post condition, right? Now, then another one is alternative flow. Alternative flow. For alternative, sorry, someone have a message on the chat. Okay, Oluwashon, can you please help me with your mic, please? All right, thank you. So that there'll be no interference. Then for alternative flow, you agree with me that there's no alternative flow for this because this is an enterprise solution and it's an e-voting solution, which is very sensitive. So there'll be no alternative way for you to log in than to just provide your membership ID and password. So in scenarios where there is no alternative flow, you basically put NA, that is not available. All right, not available, NA. Now that takes us to the business of the day, which is the business rules. This is where your business analysis acumen, your analytical acumen to analyze each of the functionality, each of the information about this functionality would come in. So, sorry, excuse me. So you talk about the business rule, but before I go into the business rule, what I've been doing so far, is it clear to us? Are we following along?
A bit.
Okay, if you are lost at any place, you can type I'm lost. I'll come and look for you. Maybe you are lost at Manchester or you got lost at the airport when we are about going from Canada to Australia. We lost you at the airport. Just type I am lost and I would explain. I would come back to it. My goal is for you guys to have an understanding of this. Or if you say, okay, I'm going to listen to the recording to look at it again, fine. But is it clear what I've been doing so far? Remember, I walked you guys through the templates of this thing. Let me share my entire screen so people will see. Remember, I walked you guys through a sample template. So, oh, sorry. So this is a sample. This is a template of a use case scenario that I walked you guys through when I was teaching. The title, description, actors, interface, precondition, basic flow, post-condition, alternative flow. We are now at the business rules section, right? Which is what I've simply done here. The ID, title, description, actors, preconditions, basic flow, post-condition. There is no alternate flow. Then business rules, which is what I want to write now. So everything here, is it clear to us? Only Yusuf has answered and said yes. If it's not, type no. If it is, type yes before I proceed. Remember, I want to end this class on or before 11:30. So please, let's save ourselves time, okay? Okay, please, let's keep the answers coming. Only 3 people have responded. If it is not, type no. If it is, type yes. Okay, Emmanuel said yes, I think. I guess because you're in the office. Please try and watch this again. Okay, Femi, you said you have a question. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Even though I joined this class late, the first document you show us, and this very particular one, which one are we actually submitting? Because it seems what is in this particular document is what we already have in the former document. Like this one looks like a table. The other one is just
It's also a table. This is a table now.
Yeah, no. The one that one of us read out.
That is a elicitation results, high level requirements. So if you are the one that conducted the elicitation activities, you also write out all this as well. You will document this. Do you understand? You will document this if you are the one that conducted the elicitation. And that's why I said 2 things can happen when you join your new place of work. Is either you are joining them at the start of the project, whereby you will conduct the elicitation and document the results of the elicitation in a high-level manner like this, or you joined when they have already started the project and someone has already documented the elicitation for you. So either way, if someone has documented it, you need to read the requirements to understand it. So that's why I talked about solutioning. And if nobody has documented it, then you need to elicit or gather the requirement and document it yourself this manner. After documenting it this manner, this is high level. Anybody that's a layman can read and understand this, but your developer don't need these high level requirements. It is useless to them, because if you give it to them, they won't build an actual solution that is workable. What you need to do as a business analyst is to put in your analytical hat and then translate it into functional requirements using your use case scenario. Does that answer your question? Mano?
Understood. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. You're welcome. That is Femi, right?
Yeah, it's Femi. Yeah.
All right. You can put down your hand. Thank you so much. Okay. Now, let's go into business rule, which is where you spend a lot of your analytical mind in when documenting a use case scenario. In business rules, we also call them acceptance criteria, which is where you talk about the criteria that needs to be met. Remember, you've been given a requirement of how the eligible voters should be able to log in. And it is just these two requirements. But you're going to expand just these two items that are given to you using your understanding of IT, your analytical mindset, and your problem-solving mindset, along with your solutioning mindset to solve this. This doesn't come naturally, but you will learn on the job. I never learned this from day one. But what I will tell you for free, which is a secret, is that the more you practice this, the better you become. That is the universal truth about it. The more you practice this, the better you become at writing it. So I'm going to give you guys an assignment, but I will advise practice as much beyond the assignment I give you. Practice as much. Don't be scared of failing. Don't be scared of being lost of ideas. Try as much as possible. If you are lost of ideas, leave it. Go and do other things. Come back to it later. More and more. The more you practice, the more you become good at it. So now, business rules. How I look at my business rules, that I look at my business rule from the point of the basic flow. I look at what are the business rules for the basic flow. Are there going to be business rules for my preconditions? And are there going to be business rules for my postconditions? And also, if there's an alternative flow, what should be the business rules for those alternative flow? So I'm simply saying, what should be the acceptance criteria for basic flow? What should be my acceptance criteria for my preconditions, if there are? What should be my acceptance criteria for my postcondition, if there are? And what should be my acceptance criteria for alternative flow, if there are? So let's first focus on the basic flow. They say user should enter membership ID. Okay, let me list these things. Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. So I have what I need. So they itemize. So I'll say membership ID field. Now, the membership, just for instance, when you have this, when I open that Amazon this thing, what I mean by membership ID field, let me go to this. So you see here I say your name. This thing is what we call an input field, the place you type where customer types. It's called an input field. So when I say membership ID field or membership ID input field, I want to write what should be the acceptance criteria for membership ID input field. So let me just underline this, Control U. We must ensure that only alpha. Now, what I want to type here depends on what you are given. If you are told that the membership ID is an alphanumeric character, right? Or you are told that it's just alphanumeric means alphabet and numbers. So we can have a membership ID of, let's say, IIBA 234. That's alphanumeric character. So maybe this is how IIBA have their membership IDs. Whenever you become a member, you can become, the next person might be IIBA 235, right? So if this is how IIBA membership IDs are, then we must ensure that the system takes note of it. So we must ensure that only alpha numeric characters are accepted as inputs into the membership ID field. That's one. Two, we must ensure that the input field does not take more than, if the membership ID for IIBA is, how many characters is this? 4 plus 3, 7 characters. That means we must ensure that the membership ID field does not take more than 7 characters. We must ensure that the membership ID field does not take less than 7 characters. That means if the user enters a membership ID that is not up to 7 characters, we'll throw up an error and say, enter a correct membership ID, right? A valid membership ID. If the user enters a membership ID that is more than 7 characters, maybe 8 or 9, we'll display an error message to say, enter a valid membership ID. So I'll go ahead and say, if the eligible voter, okay, let me, more than or less than, let me just capture all this here so it's be a lot more explicit and clear. Yeah, let me have them as 1. So if the eligible voter enters more than or less than 7 characters in this input field, the system should display an error message saying, kindly enter a valid membership ID, right? Let me specify this so people know it's a message. Okay. Now, we must ensure that this input field does not accept special characters, e.g., this. right? Even this and this, right? Must ensure that it does not accept special characters. Now, if the eligible voter enters a special character in this input field, the system should display an error message saying, kindly enter a, okay, let me not say kindly enter, special, let me not, kindly enter a correct format for membership ID. Right? So let me just stop here for membership ID so I can write the one for others. You can go on and write several business rules for membership ID. Remember, we're only giving these two requirements 2 and 3, that the stakeholders give to us that spoke about login. But when writing the specification, the functional specification for developers to build that login page, we don't leave it that high level. We go as detailed as possible. Now, the next one is, let me look at password input field. Let me talk about the password. Okay. Yep. So for password, I'll start by saying we must ensure that the password is valid for what exists on the system for the membership ID. So we must ensure that the password is valid for that membership ID that exists on the system. We must ensure, sorry, someone have their hand up. Okay, Ade, just write the question on the chat so that I don't want to go beyond 11:30, okay? I'm not taking our time today. Just write the question. I will attend to it once I finish doing this. We must ensure that the password input field only accepts let's say only accepts 6 characters. And assuming the password characters are 6, maybe IIBA 23 at. Let's say that's a sample format of a password. Must accept that the password, oh, okay, like 7 that I put there, accepts only 7 characters, right? We must ensure that the input field accepts alphabets, numbers, and special characters. We must ensure that users eligible, okay, if eligible voter enters more than 7 characters or less than 7 characters in the password input field, we must ensure the system displays an error message saying kindly enter a valid password. Kindly enter a valid password. Let me stop here for password. Let me just talk about the login button, right? Now, we have the login button. Now, for the login button, please, Ade, write your question so that I can answer it. Yeah. For the login button, we must ensure. So, for the login button, when the eligible voter clicks on the login button, we must ensure that the system validates the login credentials provided by the eligible voter. If either of the membership ID or password is incorrect, the system should display an error message saying incorrect membership ID or password. If the eligible voter is attempting to log in for the first time, we must ensure that the system redirects the eligible voter to reset password. If the eligible voter is not logging in for the first time, and the validation has no error, we must ensure that the system grants the eligible voter access to the eligible voters e-voting accounts. So let me just stop there for now, because I could go, the truth about it is that I could go on and on to write all the business rules that are applicable for this login functionality, right? Go on and on to write all the business rules that are applicable for this login functionality. The more you think, the more you remember, the more you write, and the more detailed you become, the better it is for your engineering team. So I don't know if you have any question. I see some hands are raised. Let me start with Ade and then Yusuf. So Ade, Yusuf, Blessing. So let's go in that sequence. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is due to all this input feed for the membership, does that mean that the business analyst we have to do all this? Because I think when you create things like this should be like what a software developer and a software tester should be able to do in terms of when you input incorrect format for a membership ID, the special characters, that should be one of the things a web designer, software developer should be able to do when you give them procedure of what you want to create. I think it should be part of their job for them to be able to create a perfect error-free app or website, which should be tested by a software tester to be able to come back to this. I just want to know if this has to be a job of a business analyst, or business analyst is just taking these jobs of a software developer or tester.
All right. Thank you for that, Adi. I love that. So this is your job as a BA, right? When you're working in an IT project, this is your job. You are the one that should determine and decide how the experience should be, how the product functionalities should go. The job of the software developer is to pick what you've documented or what you've specified and build it. Now, the job of the software tester is to pick what you have documented or this requirement you have specified and test what the software developer has built to make sure if they built it in line with what you have documented.
Okay.
Do you understand now? So that is how these jobs are. You are the one that provide the requirements. The developer will take your requirements and build according to your requirements. The tester will take your requirements, create what we call test case and test scripts. Use that test case and test scripts to test. They'll create the test case and test scripts from the requirements you've given to them. They'll use that test case and test scripts to use to test the system that the developer built to confirm if it is in line with what you have specified as a business analyst. After everything, they'll come and demo it to you. Then you will also verify or validate to confirm if what they have built or tested is in line with what you have given them. So you are the one that would dictate how or what should be in a system. And that is why you are so invaluable in the project. And that is why you when I think it was Sean that was asking, or someone was asking about copy and paste. That is why you don't need to copy and paste. You need to learn to think technology, try to understand how system works, try to think about solutioning, bring in your analytical mind. And as I said, you can pick them function by function or step by step in your basic flow and write the business rules for each of the basic flows. If there's an alternative flow, write the business rules for each of the alternative flows. That way, you ensure you are as detailed as possible, so that when the developer is building, let me give you an instance. So before I joined my current place of work, these error messages you're talking about, developers would assign any anonymous or general error message because they don't want to spend that time to think about what should be the error message or not. They'll just assign a general error message. An instance is statements, right? I mean, there's this feature called BVM validation. So when we were building our Naira proposition, a product manager handled that particular Naira proposition. And after they finished, BVM validation is one of the things that need to be done for you to have a Naira account in Nigeria. Now, when the BVM validation is incorrect, or when there's an error that is returned from validating BVN, what the application normally do is that to tell the customer incorrect BVN, right? But the thing is that sometimes the BVN is actually correct, but because we are trying to validate the information the customer provided us, maybe the information the customer provided us does not match with what exists on that BVN data, the system still returns incorrect BVN, which is not the appropriate communication or the appropriate error message. Do you get? So I had to enhance that error message and say, don't return incorrect BVN when the BVN is correct. So if the BVN is not correct, return incorrect BVN, fine. But if the BVN is correct and the information does not match, return the error message that says that we are unable to match the information you have provided us with what exists on your BVN. Simple. Do you get it? So I don't know if it is this class or another class I've said that software developers are like soldiers, like zombies. You tell them to go, they will go. Tell them to come, they will come. Most times they don't have that time to think and look at what should be the scenario or what should be the error message or communication. It is your duty as business analyst or product owner or product manager to conceptualize the experience you want to give your customers or your users. And you document all those things and tell them, please build to my specification. And that's what they do basically. If anything goes wrong, they'll basically say it is what we are giving that we built. So they don't want to take responsibility for anything. And that is why you as a PA, you must ensure you specify everything as detailed as possible. If you are able to specify them as detailed as possible, you will save them energy, you will save the business energy, and you will save time for the project as well. So it is your responsibility as a BA.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yusuf, and then Blessing.
Oh, okay. One of my questions has actually been answered with this previous one, but I just want to add these for the membership ID input fields.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking since this is a guided solution and the eligible voter registers with the ID would have been uploaded as which is as a preconditions before this can be. Is it going to be safe to say that the system should just do a quick check on the register to just validate the ID?
Exactly.
Then
that
just
happens.
do it as a check, or if not, then error that the
exactly. So that will be done when they click on the login button.
Exactly. No, when one type the ID.
Yes. You're right. You can do that.
To the password or something.
Yes.
Just do a quick check and mark it that it is okay. It is not okay.
Exactly.
I'm just thinking instead of us writing, return the error. But as you also mentioned in this previous question that Ade asked, I think is also okay because it will give the user
right communication.
Information. Exactly.
You don't want your users to be confused as to why am I not able to log in. You want to be able to communicate to them, this is why you can't log in. So that nobody will need to be calling the office and say, I've been trying to log in, it's giving me error that unable to allow me to log in. You can't log in at the moment. Assuming that's the error message you're getting, you can't log in at the moment. You can't log in at the moment. Please, what is happening? People should help me. I want to vote. You want to do wayo. You want to start forging things. So please, let me vote, and so my vote will count. So make sure you give them the accurate communication. Communication is very key when you are articulating your requirements as a BA or as a product owner or product manager. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for that, Yusuf. Blessing.
I think I have two questions. The first one is so does that mean that we'd have to prepare a table for every of the use case we've identified from the requirements?
Exactly.
Okay. Then my second question is it okay to say that this use case scenario we're preparing now, can we also call it product backlog?
So the product backlog is the functionalities. So on your product backlog, you have eligible voter login as an item on your product backlog. Do you guys? You have cast vote. So these things now will make up your product backlog.
Yeah.
Each functionality will make up your product backlog. Not the use case specification now. The use case specification is you now giving, remember this is login. Right? And in login, we said we have eligible voter login and normal user login. The user login is what super admin can use to log in, is the interface that EMC can use to log in to open or close the election. So that is another login entirely. But this is a login that speaks to eligible voters basically. So that means under login here, we'll have like a sub a little children that we'll call this one eligible voter login, and the next one we'll call it admin login.
Okay.
Do you get it now?
Yeah. Okay, I was actually kind of confused there because I know for the product backlog we also do acceptance criteria so that the testers can actually have what to use for testing.
So let me, you're trying to pull my hand to show you something. So let me show you something.
Thank you.
Let me show you something. I don't want to show you this. Let me look for something else to show you. Okay. Let me open this. I don't want to show you my office work. Let me show you a personal work. So you see here, it says continue with Google, which is the authentication I was talking to you guys about. Authorization, authentication, basically. So let me show you product backlog. Okay, what is a product backlog? I'll show you guys what a product backlog is. Let it open. Let my Jira open. Oh, I don't have time for all of this. So I'll stop recording because I want to show an office work. Oh, don't worry, let me still try and see if I can. I don't want to show an office work, right? Re-verify your account, switch accounts.
You could just explain to us. Probably when we get there, you can now show us. I think that's fine.
Your product backlog is basically a list of items. I want to show you a product backlog from Jira, how it looks like. It's just a list of features that you'll be doing. You can use Jira. You can have it on an Excel sheet, on a spreadsheet, a list of features that you'll be doing with their priority, high priority. The ones that are highest will be on top. The ones that are middle priority will be middle. The ones that are low priority will be at the bottom. So it could be a table on your spreadsheet, or it could be on your Jira backlog. So we just call it backlog for that terminology. Backlog basically is a list of items. Do you understand? A list of items in order of priority. That is what a backlog is. List of items in order of priority. Okay?
Okay.
So on that place, you have this as an item. If it's the first thing we need to do, it will have the highest priority. Then we'll have this as an item, we'll have this as an item, all of that as an item on that backlog. Okay?
Okay.
Does that clarify your question, Blessing?
Not exactly, but then it's fine. Maybe when we get there, I'll be able to understand.
All right, sure. When we are writing user stories we'll write user stories on this thing on Thursday. But also, to add to your question, right?
Yeah.
On Jira backlog, as I said, it's just a list of features or list of items you are going to be building for that product that will be on the backlog. Now, that list of item is just the title of that feature. So it's the titles that will be on that backlog. When you now open that particular item, you will see the user story and the acceptance criteria for that item.
Yeah.
Do you get it now? So you don't put the acceptance criteria on the backlog. The acceptance criteria speaks to the feature. So it's a list of features that will be on the backlog. When you select each feature, you will see the requirements in that. Yes. So user stories and acceptance criteria are requirements. So you see the requirements for that feature. Just as if you are using backlog and if you're not writing user stories and we're writing use case specifications, you see things like eligible voter login on the list of the backlog. When you now open that eligible voter login, you will see the list of the requirements that we have here. All these requirements. Okay?
Yeah.
Oof, we're taking a lot of time. Apologies for everyone that I have eaten into an extra 45 minutes to 1 hour of their Saturday activities. So it's time for my assignment, right? I want you guys to write a use case specification for admin login, right? For admin login. The admins we have is super admin and EMC, right? So write use case specification for admin login. Read the requirements and write it, right? So If you want to go above and beyond, you can look at these assignments that I have here, read it up, and then write a use case scenario for WhatsApp. How to set your profile picture on WhatsApp, how to send a chat message on WhatsApp, since we all use WhatsApp. So it's something you can be opening and looking at the functionality itself. So you can, if you want to go above and beyond, practice makes perfect or practice makes perfection, whichever one is correct, right? But the more you practice, as I said, the better for you. When I was learning these things, after I finish listening to the class, I go beyond and I over practice myself. And that is what makes us, what you learn is part and parcel of you. Whatever you learn is not part and parcel of me, but it's part and parcel of you. Okay? All right. Thank you so much, guys, for your patience. Thanks for the time. Yeah, I'm going to share the file with you guys. So I'll share it on the group chats.
How correct your data would analyzing.
Please, I just wanted to ask, is assignment an individual one or still a team assignment?
Yeah, individual.
Okay.
So it's an individual one. So I've sent the document. Once you try to access it, if you don't have access to it, request for access, I will grant you access, okay? Yes, for just the super admin and AMC, they are the two actors for this admin login. So under the actor section for admin login, you put EMC and super admin. All right. Thanks, guys. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a nice day. Bye-bye.